Hey guys, I wasn't going to do this video, it wasn't planned, but it's such a beautiful day out on campus today, and so I had to film. Today you're gonna have lunch with me, and I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about how I stopped overthinking, because honestly it's still a work in progress for me. Yesterday I was overthinking like so much. I felt actually paralyzed for a good couple of hours just because I couldn't do anything. So I just wanted to talk about a couple of things that really have helped me get out of that space when I am in that space. So I'm gonna eat my lunch because I have class after this, but yeah, let's begin. Thing number one, I think, is just to acknowledge that you're overthinking and that's fine, right? Like, I think sometimes we can get frustrated at ourselves because we're overthinking, and just acknowledging that you're overthinking is a good step, and thinking about ways in which you can try to combat that, like by watching this video, is already a great step. So that's the most obvious and most brief tip number one. Tip number two that I really need to work on, honestly, is to not use social media, especially when I'm overthinking. And for some of you who've been around, you might know that I don't use Instagram, but I do use YouTube a lot. And sometimes I think I use it so much that it doesn't even matter that I stopped using Instagram. And it doesn't help that when I have questions floating around my head, I end up going on YouTube to find answers, which doesn't always help. I often find that using YouTube or any form of social media or any search engine is not helpful for me, because it just fills my mind with even more noise than there already is in my head. And so what that means is just I end up leaving more confused or with more things to think about, and that doesn't help me. And so when I'm overthinking, especially when I'm studying or when I'm supposed to be focusing, I turn on airplane mode, which I talk about, I think, in a previous video. I'll link it on the screen. Just honing in on one thing at a time. And that's my third point, actually, which is to focus on one thing at a time. And I know it sounds so easy, but I think it's a lot easier said than done. The thing about overthinking is just that one thought leads to another thought and leads to another thought, and like before you know it, it's a vicious cycle. Focusing on one thing at a time is just like being so, like, actually trying and putting in like 100% effort to be completely in the moment doing that one thing. So I'm taking a bite of my food, like, to really savor every single bite and like make my brain focus on just taking a bite. And actually, there's another really good video that I watched about this by Rowena Sai. Like, she's an amazing YouTuber. You should totally check her out. I'll link her video up in the cards or something. She's super cool, and she talks about this as well in one of her videos, so I think you should definitely check that out. The next thing that really helps me is to write everything out. If I'm worried about a particular situation or question, I would ask myself, like, why am I worried about it? And I would try to journal about that. And sometimes you don't even have a reason for overthinking, and even in those situations, I would just dump all of my thoughts that are going on in my head onto paper and then have a chance to organize them later. It doesn't even need to make any sense at all. I think the point is just to get as many things out of your head and onto paper, because our brains are a little bit like computers. There's only so much space you have in there, and so you need to clear up space whenever you can. So the next thing that really helps me is to just push the pause button. Sometimes, as I was mentioning earlier, overthinking can be crippling. When there's so many thoughts going in your head, you don't even know what to do next. And in those situations, I just go for a walk, or I take a long hot shower. Or like yesterday, when I was overthinking while I was studying, worrying about my midterms, worrying about what I would do over the summer, worried about my senior thesis, I just stopped, even though I had a midterm like the next day that I had not finished studying for, and I rolled out my yoga mat, and I just lay there, and I just focused on my breath. And I think that lying there just for 20 minutes, focusing on my breath, really helped me to take a step back and let my thoughts come and go and calm down, because I actually gave myself space to stop and listen to my thoughts. A lot of times I have like back-to-back things. I have class, and then I have club meetings, and then I have meals with friends, and in that rapid pace of life, sometimes it's so difficult to detach and allow yourself space to just sift through your thoughts. And so I think taking a pause and doing whatever it is you need to do to take that breath and take that step back is completely necessary. I'm gonna sneak this one in here, but I'm sure everyone knows it. A great way to take a break is to go exercise, because moving your body, getting the sweat going is such a good way to de-stress. And just drop into the present moment, because usually when you're sweating and working out hard, you can't think about a billion and one things at a time. I always find that exercising helps me so much when my mind is going crazy, and I always feel better after the workout. LOL, there's a leaf in my food. Something else that might help you is to declutter. When my physical or mental or digital spaces are overcluttered, I always feel like I have so much more to do, and that just adds an extra pressure on my shoulders to have all my thoughts sorted out and to have my life together. And so when I have a clear space, be it digital or physical, I feel like I can have so much more clarity in my life and in my mind. Sorry for the background change. I had to go to class, so that's why I'm back home right now. And I guess the only thing that I have left to say about overthinking is that it's not really a tip, but it's just something that I realized. I think overthinking is a symptom of something deeper, right? It's a symptom of attachment to the future or to the past, or to outcomes, or to people, or to relationships. I think if I had to boil overthinking down into one word, it would be attachment. And I know we always think of attachment as a good thing, but when we are too attached to outcomes and results and how people perceive us and things like that, it becomes unhealthy. For example, in my case, I've been thinking and worrying a lot about things like, what am I gonna do for my summer? What am I gonna do for my senior thesis next year? After graduation, am I going to do a master's, or am I going to start work immediately? All these things come down to an attachment to my future. And so maybe your overthinking also stems from something like that, an attachment to something. I won't go too much into this because I feel like it's a completely different topic and I don't want to ramble on for too long. But you should totally check out the video by Rowena, which I will link down below, because I think she does a really good job at explaining detachment. I'm actually making a video on waking up at 6 a.m. for 30 days. So it's going to be coming out real soon. Well, I mean, not real soon. It's going to come out in a month because 30 days. But you will get to watch that and watch me suffer. So you should totally subscribe and stay tuned for that. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.